How do I determine the correct rent for my single family home? There's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of automations. You can go on Zillow. You can find like the automated Zestimate. You can use tools like Rentometer or something like that, which is an automated analysis to compare to many other properties and tell you what your rent should be. Another way to do it is to speak to local professionals. You can speak to local investors, or even better, speak to a local property management company that has tons of experience in the area, understands what houses should rent for, how long they're going to sit on the market, how they compare to other houses in the area as far as size, bedrooms, bathrooms, amenities, condition, and things like that. So you can use local resources, you can use automated tools. Another thing you can do is compare it to active listings. So go on Zillow.com and type in your address and see what is listed nearby. Now, in less dense areas, you might look out a mile or two from the house. In more dense areas like Richmond City, for example, or surrounding counties, you probably want to go half a mile out or closer, 0.25 miles, something like that, to stay pretty close. In Richmond, you could have a house on one side of the street that's in a certain neighborhood that rents for way more than a house on another side of the street. So that's when it really is good to talk to local professionals, because using the automated tools, it's going to take comparables from all over the area, and it's not going to consider condition. So you're going to need to adjust for condition and amenities like updated kitchens, updated baths, fenced backyards, a garage, new HVAC system, curb appeal. There's a lot of things like that you need to adjust for. So just because the house is close and a similar size may have different updates or amenities that you need to consider as well and adjust for that. You also want to consider, when are you going to put it in the market? Now, if you're trying to do rental analysis and you're going to list it January 1, it may be listed for a little bit less than where you would list it at June or July, depending on the urgency at which you want to get it leased. There's something called leasing season. Leasing season falls typically in spring and summer. That's when most people are moving and the most activity happens. And so you can get the highest rents because there's so many more people looking for rentals at that time. And so generally you want to time your leases to start and end in leasing season. So if you get something leased January 1, you don't want it to come up for renewal January 1 of the next year. So you might do 18-month lease, or you might do a 6-month lease and then have it auto renew on annual terms from there. So if you are in a leasing season, your rents might be a little bit higher from there. If you're in December, the holiday season, or January and winter, people are more dormant and they don't want to move as much, meaning there's less people looking, meaning you're probably not going to get optimal rents during that time, or it's going to be a little bit more difficult, or the vacancy is going to be a little bit longer. So keep that in mind. Another factor you want to think about is strategy. So there's market conditions and comparables and everything like that. But then there's also something completely unrelated, strategy. Obviously, typical strategy is get things leased as fast as possible at a reasonable rent. With that said, there are some people that need a much higher rent marker to make sense for DSCR, to cover their expenses and things like that. They might need a really high rent to have a lease signed at that amount for it to make sense. And so if that's the case, they may be willing to let a home sit vacant for 3 months until they find the right fit. There are other people that do not want to pay more than one mortgage payment for longer than 1 month, and they will be willing to reduce the rent to get someone in there quickly and start covering that expense. So a lot of that comes with strategy as well, and your financial goals of what you need initially when you're getting that thing rented for the first time. From there, you might have some increases and things like that year over year as the renewals come up. But for that first initial rent, and you're doing the analysis, or if you're doing the analysis at renewal, it's a very similar process. If you're thinking, how much should you increase it, or should you increase it at all? You want to look at comparables in the area, because if your tenants can move out and find a similar house at way less expensive, they're going to move out and you're going to cause vacancy and turnover on your own house. So you want to, just like a business, understand supply and demand, understand what the competition is doing and what's out there in the market, and then do what's best that meets your financial goals and your strategies. I think that's, taking all that in consideration is how you should find the rent for your single family home.